This you didn't put on. Oh, you did? Okay. Likkutei Torah, Behar, page mem, second column. About 15 lines from the end of the page. Okay, the Alter Rebbe explained the pasuk Pischuli Achesi Rayasi. So Achesi means the natural instinctive love that a Jew has to Hashem. Also Achesi comes from the word weaving together, that it becomes one, the Jew and Hashem become one. And then from there he goes to the level of Rayasi. It says that the Yidden, that the Jews give Hashem Parnasa. And he says, to understand this, what that means, he says, to understand how is it possible that an neshama which comes into the body is able to become one with Hashem down here in the body. Okay? So he explains that the difference between the neshama coming down, the neshama could become tamei down here. The Torah can never become impure. And therefore it's called, Torah is called lachmi, my bread. So the Alter Rebbe starts explaining, in order to understand all this, we need to understand the four main things in the process of bread. You plant, you grind, you knead, and you bake. These are the four processes of... So he explains, meanwhile, what is zeriya? What is planting a seed? You take a seed. This seed grows an apple tree. The seed has nothing to do with an apple. It doesn't look like an apple, it doesn't taste like an apple, it doesn't have the color of the apple. You put it in the ground, in the dirt, cover it with dirt, and then the seed rots, it germinates, and then it connects to the power of vegetation that the earth has, and basically it comes out in the form of yesh miyayin. Okay? That's the first aspect of Zuriya. So he says, Hine kol ha-moshel zeh beprotis. Exactly the same details of the moshel. A person can meditate and realize the way it works in Torah mitzvahs, meaning Torah is chokhmah tzurah is barich. Torah is the wisdom of Hashem. And as the Rambam writes, over chokhmah se'achar Hashem in his wisdom is one, chakim v'lei b'chokhmah yediyah. Hashem is wise, but not in our known form of chokhmah. U'b'ri b'yatzimtzum v'ishtalshlis. And through the abundant, many tzimtzumim, and ishtaush, the chain of one level to another level. Yarda mata comes all the way down. Achin is slab, shavin is gashmi, binyanim gashmim. The Torah deals with physical things. The Alter Rebbe also mentioned before the question, if Torah is the wisdom of Hashem, which is one with Hashem, how is it possible that Torah deals with physical objects? Torah deals with liars and, fake things and people lying in court and all that, litigants and all that. So he's explaining because Hashem's Torah comes down from the highest levels into the lowest levels. Kamashal agadin azera, similar to the seed of a fruit or of a seed or a fruit, shenilkach mikerach atzemeach, which is taken from the power of earth that created this first seed to begin with. That koyach, the power that the earth has to create vegetation, that is also yashmiyan. Like you said, what is it? You don't see any open power in the earth. The earth, and only it can do something with the seed. The earth itself doesn't grow things, it's weeds, but I'm saying it doesn't grow grain or fruit or things like that. Then the seed has to germinate. Then it has to connect. So he says, it's k'maimed tatshei ha'aretz. Hainu eish das. The word tatshei, which actually means earth is proud of vegetation. Tatshei is spelled Tov Dalet Shin Aleph. Switching the letters around, Alter Rebbe says, is two words, eish das, which refers to Torah, which is called eish das lami, is the fiery law of Hashem. V'apei hanitzmach mimenu. And the fruit that grows from the seed, by being in the ground, is something from nothing. Like we learned the other day, where do we see in the Gashmistic world the concept of making something from nothing? There's two things. Childbirth It's, as the Mishnah says in last week's Pirkei, tipas rucha, it's a putrid drop, and out comes a whole baby. Or you have in vegetation, you take a seed, it rots in the ground, and out comes a big tree. It's yesh mi'ayin, as much as it's physically possible. In the seed and in the earth, and in the unity of the seed and the earth, it has a spiritual life. So the outcome, the physical outcome of the seed, has a taste and a smell and a color and everything. The seed, though, that makes this tree come out, nothing is seen or felt in it, even any taste or smell. So he says there's two things. There's the seed that has no taste and no smell, no color, no nothing. And yet the outcome of the seed produces a beautiful tree. So what's the mashal to Torah? Torah that comes into the physical world, right? Torah mitzvahs deal with physical objects. You can't do mitzvahs spiritually. You do mitzvahs physically. Not only that, it comes into Gashmis, like we said before. It could be swindlers and liars and evil and all that stuff. The chayis in that level of Torah is extremely, extremely limited. Because all you see, you don't see any kedusha in it. You see the Torah talking about the physical objects and thieves and robbers and all that stuff. The higher level of Gan, which is the world of Bria, Me'idim Sham Chabad. Over there, the level of Chochmah Bina Das. Over there, you see openly the revelation of Hashem's intellect. Umeir Torah B'china Satayin B'Sogis Sichus Alukus Mamash. He said, Mikamakin, Hasagai is Yesh Mi'ayin. It's still Yesh Mi'ayin. Legabi Mekreira Dukula Chochmi Lo Chakim Le B'Chochmi Yadir. It's interesting. The Alter Rebbe is now comparing like this. Gan Eden's learning Torah is like the seed. When Torah comes down here and it hides in the Gashmistic world, then it produces the greatness of Torah. He says, you don't see godliness. All you see is the Gashmistic thing. But reality is, where's the real learning of Torah? Only down here in the Gashmistic world. The Gemara tells the story, when a voice came out from heaven to rule like one of the Tanoim, the other Tana said, Lo b'shamayim. Torah in heaven has no jurisdiction over the world whatsoever. A voice can come out from heaven, okay, and say the halachas in Kabbalah instead of Rabbi Yeshua, and the famous machlekes between them. Nevertheless, Rabbi Yeshua came along and said, Lo b'shamayim. It's totally irrelevant what the heavenly court says, who the halacha is like. Why? Because Torah in heaven is not planted in the ground. You don't have a tree coming from it. It's still the level of the seed in Gan Eden. What the pasuk says, we say it's in Tehillim, we say it in Benching. Hazaydim bedima. Those that plant with tears, will harvest with joy. Kiarei simply means you work a lot to plant, and then the harvest you rejoice. When you learn it down here, you don't have the same pleasure they have in Gan Eden. In Gan Eden is neshamas without bodies. They learn Torah obviously on a different level, completely different level than we learn down here. But the ultimate level of the enjoyment of Torah is dafka down here in the Gashmistic world. To explain it as follows. We know they learn Torah in Gan Eden. Okay, now, Torah, so there's a few mashalim, a few cases Chassidus gives to understand how they learn in Gan Eden. There's a din, the famous Mishnah, beginning above Metzir, Shnai Meichsim Betalis. Two people are holding onto a talus. They come to Bezdin. Each one's holding the corners of the talus. This one says, I found it. This guy said, I found it. All these types of things. Or another Mishnah Bava Kama says, Hamachlif part of the chamor. A guy exchanges a donkey for a cow. Okay, so they make the exchange. And then they find out the cow gave birth to a calf. So the whole question now, was the calf born before the exchange? Then it belongs to the owner of the cow because it was before the exchange. They didn't exchange the calf, only the cow. If it was born after the exchange, then it belongs to the owner of the cow because now it's his cow that gave birth. Okay? So obviously, they learned that din in Gan Eden. Now how do they learn? There's no talus in Gan Eden. The two people are coming holding on to a talus. Yeah. So Chassidus explains, what are they learning that din in halacha? We learned already mitzvahs are food, and Torah is food, and mitzvahs are garments. Right? So Shnai Mechzim Metal is the way they learn in Gan Eden is two neshamas are coming up to Gan Eden, fighting that over a mitzvah. This one said, I did it, and this one said, I did it. It's also a talus. It's a spiritual garment. Torah is food, and mitzvahs are garments. So Shnai Mechzim Metal means the guy, this neshama says, hey, I did this mitzvah, I want the reward. And this neshama says, no, I did the mitzvah, I want the reward. And that's what so that's how they learn the Torah in the spiritual world. Or the case of, we said, you exchange a donkey for a chamor. Yeah? So what does that refer to in Gan Eden? It's an animal. So there's different types of nefesh habamis. Different types of animal souls. There's a chamor, a lazy, good for nothing, it's always cold. A parda is a cow that works. So there's this type, but they don't learn it in the physical sense because there's no donkey there and there's no chamor and there's no giving birth over there in a physical sense. So they learn it in a spiritual sense. There's an exchange for this type of nefesh habamis, for this type of nefesh habamis, and then whatever, offshoots of that and so on. So in Gan Eden, yeah, they enjoy it. But it's only in the seed level. Then the Torah comes down into the physical world, so to speak, it rots, and it's dealing with the physical world. You look at the Torah, you don't see the Kedusha of Hashem. You see a subject, there's like science and medicine, and there's a subject called Talmud. You don't see the Kedusha in it down here. But nevertheless, he says, then, because you learn down here, that's the planting that creates the growing of the tree in Gan Eden. Because the word of Hashem is halacha batel, and therefore the Torah germinates, means it becomes batel in comparison to the earth, which is the level of chachma, which is bittul afar. Mitzvah began Eden creates the Schar mitzvah, which is the mitzvah itself. Began Eden Tzadikim Yeshven enemies of Ashchina. That Tzadikim sit there and benefit from the Shechita. Umesanim Asagosim. And they have the pleasure of their understanding Asagas Alokis, that this level of understanding is Yesh Miyayin, the Ziva Adam Me'er Shomayim B'Kechatzmech. So in other words, like this, that's why he said before he quoted the Gemara, Ashri Misha Balakan Talmud B'Yodi. Fortunately, the guy that comes here and there's Talmud in his hand. What that means is, how much Torah does the neshama learn in Gan Eden? How much Torah they learn down here? It says, the neshama comes up to Gan Eden. Yeah, it's okay, it's not a physical body. But the neshama still needs food and clothing. Spiritual neshama still needs food and clothing in Gan Eden. So what's the food of the neshama in Gan Eden? The Torah learned in this world. What are the garments of the neshamas in Gan Eden? The mitzvahs they did in this world. But this world, again, is dictating what's going up there. So the zriya, the planting, where you don't see this apple, you see a seed that doesn't look, taste, nothing like the apple. That's down here. Torah is concealed in gashmistic things and liars, swindlers, thieves, and everything. But dafka through the zriya down here, through learning down here, does the person have the food and the clothing in Gan Eden. What do you mean again? Food and clothing in Gan Eden. The more food they have, so to speak, the greater their understanding is in Gan Eden of Torah mitzvahs. The more mitzvahs they have, the more expensive garments, so to speak. The refined garments allow a greater revelation in Gan Eden of that particular neshama. So a person that doesn't learn Torah, do mitzvahs, their level in Gan Eden is very limited. Because where's the planting? The planting of Torah mitzvahs in this world, and then it gets the reward. The tree comes out in Gan Eden. And he says, the guf halachas gashmis, the physical halachas say malos man, are the mayim nukrim in the feminine water, meaning the awakening from below. Legabi the chokhmot tzayna mlubish b'dvar havayu halach, which dresses into the dvar Hashem. V'nei just like zriya gashmis, just like in a physical planting, eina tzimachas, it doesn't grow. Until the seed germinates, rots. It changes from its being. In other words, in order for the seed to make things grow, it got to be one with the earth. As long as it's still a seed, which is different than the earth, the seed cannot produce any growth. The seed has to produce growth by rotting in the ground, meaning it becomes completely bottled to afar, and then it's able to grow things. So the same thing, he says, it has to be the nefesh. In order for the nefesh down here to plant, that things should grow up there, it needs to be Mesiras Nefesh b'Torah mitzvahs. It needs to have Mesiras Nefesh of Torah mitzvahs, which is a complete level of bittul. That it becomes one with the earth of above, which is Malchus v'Shchinas Uzei, Aidei Mesiras Nefesh Zu. Through the level of Mesiras Nefesh of the Alosma, meaning the Aved of the person from down here. Like, what do we say before going to sleep? B'yadcha afkid ruchi. In your hand, I'm giving up my soul. You're going to watch it for me at night when we go to sleep. Vaydeis and nikletes misyachedes. Through that it becomes one alter shalom et beilam hazeh in the order talyena, just like yichud hakatzmech shebegan kechatzmech shereish gashmi. To simplify it like this, down here's the planting. But in order for the planting to produce fruits in Gan Eden, it needs to have the level of complete bittul. Just like in order for the seed to produce a tree, it needs to have complete bittul. It has to become one with the ground. It has to rot and germinate in the ground. Then it can grow out the tree. But another interesting point is, a little bit down here produces a lot up there. The little seed down here produces a big tree. So he says, here is where we're planting. The tree is growing in Gan Eden, in the higher worlds of Elokus. In order for that little seed, though, but it's a little seed. But through the seed having bittul to Hashem, Mesiras Nefesh, it produces infinitely amount up there. Now the Rebbe says in the Tshuva, a little action down here affects a tremendous amount up there. And he gives the analogy to we learned in the Tshuva. In order for the sun, the shadow of the sun, to move a little bit down here, the sun has to travel hundreds and thousands of miles up there in the sky to cast a shadow a little bit moved away. But that means a little bit down here has a tremendous impact up there. So Jew has a seed, It's very little, it's tiny. You can barely see it. It has no taste, no nothing. You put it in the ground with Aveda Bittul, Nafshi Ka'afar L'Kol Tiyah. So this is what Rebbe is explaining. What's the Aveda of Zriya? He says again, Torah, we create the bread of Hashem to keep Hashem in the world. In order to create bread, there's 4 parts, right? Zriya, there's planting and grinding and kneading and baking. So what's the first Aveda of Zriya? The Aveda of Bittul. That's the first Aveda of Zriya. You want to make bread? The seed has to rot in the ground, meaning it has to have Bittul Talukus down here, and then the stage number, there's 3 more stages that you got to do yet. But the first stage, Zriya, implies the complete level of Bittul. Just like the seed, in order to produce something, has to rot in the ground, meaning it has to become completely bottled in the afar, which by the way is Malchus, which is a level of Shechina in a spiritual sense. So then it could start growing things. Then there's the second level. You have, then you have to grind it, and you have to knead it, and you have to, that's he's going to continue soon. This is how the intellectual is supposed to understand that his learning should be in this type of learning, bittul. He shouldn't make the secondary primary or the primary secondary. Well, for instance, his whole goal shouldn't be in the Torah, in the physical aspects of Torah. Some people get carried away about the garments and about the thieves and the liars. A guy, the Gemara, the Mishnah says, a guy says, I only have Torah, I don't have mitzvahs, he doesn't even have Torah. He should put his heart to the pnimis, which is the godliness in the Torah, in the level of Chochmila, Lisa Velitem Shemakim, which means like this. When a person learns Torah, the attitude has to be, it's Hashem's Torah. And therefore, the attitude has to be, as we learned many times, not that when I don't understand it, it's wrong, because that's human nature. If I understand something, it's right. If I don't understand it, it's wrong. But then you're learning the Gashmiistic thing, like a science, you have to understand it. Here a person, when they have this bittul, they understand that they're learning Hashem's Torah, so then the question is not why they don't. The question is, how are we able to understand? That's the question. Then when a person learns, it's total bittul. In other words, it's not, again, if I don't understand it, it's wrong. How could it be? It has to be in a way that I don't understand. Even what I think I understand is obvious. If my understanding is limited, and Torah is Hashem's wisdom, which is infinite, there's no way my brain understands what Hashem's Torah. Hashem in His infinite kindness gives us the ability to think that we think we could understand it on our level. But the reality is, finite brains, my chokhmah is not like your chokhmah. We can't think like Hashem. That's learning Torah with bittul. So you're learning Torah is Hashem's wisdom. Why am I doing this? Because I want to connect to Hashem. I want my Gashmiistic learning and mitzvahs should sprout out heavenly trees.